I have always held that tattoos, every one of them, have a story. Either they are a symbol of something special that happened or something important, or there's a story. And the person with the tattoo may or may not remember the story, but there's a story. You could say the same thing about scars, really, right? Usually there is a story we may or may not want to remember from a scar we have received. Occasionally there's a profound story of healing and overcoming, or pure stupidity, or cleaning dishes at Rainbow Day. But we usually, with a tattoo or a scar, are in control of our story, right? We choose where the tattoo goes. We choose what we tell people about the tattoo. Yes, maybe we cut our finger carving something in the kitchen, but we can tell people it was from our gang days back in the hood, right? We can tell people it was from saving a puppy that grabbed onto our finger as we pulled it out of the well. We get to control the story. Other marks on us sometimes seem to invite other people to assume the story, to tell our story. When we get a stain on our shirt, someone says, "Made a mess, didn't you?" When you've got orange fingers, somebody will say, "We're sneaking some Cheetos from somebody, weren't you?" Sometimes we get room to respond. We get a chance to reclaim our story. I can say, "No, someone spilled on me." Or I can say, "No, I bought my own Cheetos, ate the whole bag, thank you very much." But sometimes we don't get a chance to correct our own story. We don't get to control the narrative. Heck, sometimes we can't control the events, much less the coverage and the gossip that flows from it, right? And in today's story, we have an individual who has no control over anything going on in the story. They're paralyzed, and they have friends who are carrying them around on a mat. At no point in the story does the person say, "Take me to Jesus." At no point does the friend say, "Pick me up and carry me somewhere." What we have is four friends carrying their friend on a mat. The other person in the story who's not really in control of the situation is Jesus. Every time Jesus goes away to be alone, people follow. Every time Jesus tries to model good self-care and have boundaries, people challenge the boundaries. The number of stories that begin with, "When Jesus went away to a quiet place," and then it's anything but quiet. Or the people heard Jesus was there and he took pity on them. This is people who will not leave Jesus alone. This is paparazzi before TMZ ever imagined it. And today, Jesus is just trying to go home. He's just trying to go home. It's technically probably Peter's home where he's staying on this period of the journey where he's kind of made himself a home away from home. But the crowd hears that he's back home. They show up, and the neediness just fills the house. In this story, these two people, outside of control of their own stories, are brought together. One is paralyzed, carried by his friends. One is crowded into his own room, trapped by spectators in their own space. I'm not sure about you, but if I were Jesus, I think I'd have been done with this stuff. I'd be a little resentful of the expectations that the crowd brought with them every time, especially now into my personal space. I'm not sure, but if I were you, or if I were how you feel, but if I were Jesus, my patience would run out and my time on duty would be over. People would yell, "Hey, aren't you Jesus, that guy that heals people?" And I would shout back, "No, I'm Jesus, the guy that could heal people if they weren't so obnoxious." Or my eastern Kentucky Appalachian mountain roots might come out and they'd say, "Aren't you Jesus?" I'd say, "No, my name's none of you. None of your business. Go away. Get off my lawn." Lucky for us, Jesus has more grace. Lucky for us, Jesus has enough patience to meet the moment. The paralyzed man dangling in front of him didn't do anything wrong. And he really didn't do much to get there as far as we can tell. He may not even wanted to be there. He may feel bad intruding on Jesus, keeping him from getting a long-deserved nap after the trip. The man may have had no expectation of healing. The paralyzed man is actually treated more like a thing in Mark's telling of the story. But Jesus doesn't just see the person, he sees the friends behind the person. He sees the ones pulling the strings in this story, the ones making it all happen, the ones that literally pulled back the top thatch on a roof, dug through the mud layer, dirtied their fingers, carving a hole in a roof to lower their friend in with hopes of what might happen. Maybe Jesus sees the man and says, with crazy friends who drag you around and dangle you through roofs, I forgive you for anything you might think about them. Maybe Jesus said to the man, what do you want most right now? And maybe the man asked for forgiveness or for grace. We don't know. We just don't know what happened in that space between the paralyzed man and Jesus. But what we do know is that a miracle takes place. The scribes challenged Jesus on the idea of forgiving sin as something that any person could do. Jesus responds by telling the man to pick up his mat and walk. The paralyzed man hops up and trots home. So where does this leave us? What do we do with this story? Let's start with letting those who experience the story define the story. Jesus shows what patience and grace in the face of need looks like. A miracle that comes with sighs too deep for words. Sometimes just having the grace for the moment is a miracle. We have friends who show us the devotion and work that often precede a miracle. They are a part of this story, and they get to dictate the narrative of it more than anyone else. So let's let them speak in this story and remind us that miracle often will leave dirt under your fingernails. But what about the man on the mat? Did he have scars that told the story of his paralysis? Or was he born that way? Did he have scars on his heart from the blame people must have assigned to his condition? Did they call him a sinner? An abomination? Did they call him the devil's work? Did they wonder if God could make something that wrong? Did they blame his parents or family for his affliction? What about this man on the mat? How did he perceive this event? How did he see himself before and after the healing? We can't ask him. We don't know, but we can ask ourselves. Because we've been there too, right? There's not one of us that hasn't been told at some point we were a sinner. The number of us who have been called an abomination for who we are or what we believe seems almost universal. Those who've been told our parents, our family, our religion, our culture, our beliefs, who we are is wrong, is almost as common as breathing. So how do we see ourselves? When have you found yourself just feeling helpless? When have you been down on your mat feeling helpless? When have you found yourself waiting for a miracle? Who have you trusted to rescue you from your circumstances? Who have you trusted to rescue you from yourself? Who has gotten their fingers dirty working for your miracles? Who have you dirtied your fingers for? What miracles have also left a scar on you? What miracles have left you with a story to tell? Miracles are real. They're not promised, they're not guaranteed, and they're also not passive. For everyone who thinks a miracle happened to them and they didn't do anything to deserve it, there are friends with dirty fingers all around them. For every person who thinks they just received their privilege on birth, there are generations before them who got their fingers dirty, some in ways they shouldn't have, to provide that privilege. For everyone who thinks things just worked out for them, there's someone else behind them, supporting them, encouraging them, pushing them forward, getting them to this place. Miracles are not passive. My favorite Christmas special is one that no one else remembers. To find it, you have to do a deep dive on the internet. It's a story of a little town where a mouse no longer believes in Santa Claus and writes a letter to the effect. His dad, also a mouse, clearly, works with a human in a clock-making business. They had just planned a grand celebration for the day in downtown with this big clock that on midnight at Christmas would sing a carol. But they receive a letter back from Santa saying that Santa won't be coming because of their lack of faith. So they work the clock to make sure that it will sing a song of apology and affirming their faith. But the little mouse, who doubted Santa, also wondered how a clock works and goes in and breaks it, trying to figure out how it works. He makes a mess. At the end, he owns up to it. He goes in to try to see if he can fix it. Father Mouse joins in, the human clockmaker joins in, and they all start working and they sing a song. Even a miracle needs a hand. You work and I'll hurry. You pray and I'll plan. We'll do what's necessary, because even a miracle needs a hand. Who has dirtied their fingers for your miracles? And who have you dirtied your fingers for? Miracles can be a spiritual transformation. They can be an emotional restoration. It can be a physical healing. Of course, it can also be friends coming together to help a friend unexpectedly. It can be love forging a family in an unexpected place. It can be communities working together, dirtying their fingers to confront injustice. It can be two people speaking who swore they would never speak again. But every miracle needs a hand. What's the bigger miracle? A migraine being healed or reconciliation between two combatants? What's a bigger miracle? A cancer being healed or a family that finds healing at the hospice bed on one's final days? What's a bigger miracle? It probably depends on who is telling the story. It probably depends on how much dirt is under your fingernails as to how you perceive that miracle. Either way, miracles can be real. So let's dig in. Let's work for our miracle. Let's get our fingers dirty working for Jesus, knowing that miracles are real. But even a miracle needs a hand.